And coming up next on TSW tonight, the news at 10 after the break.
St. Ivel Gold, the country's favourite low-fat spread. It has a fresh dairy taste. Think about it. That fresh dairy taste and low fat. St. Ivel Gold.
A Terry's chocolate orange deserves to be treated with respect. After all, it took 3 months just to design the box. And it's made with real oil of orange. Extracted from the finest American oranges. You just can't help treating with a certain reverence the perfect symmetry of each delicious orange segment. It's our thought, care, and attention to detail that's completely wasted on you.
With distance, with miles, with sadness, with smiles, your job takes you on somewhere new. But wherever you go, it's still good to know the Woolwich is there to help you.
In a changing world, it's good to be with the Woolwich.
There's a magazine with 200 pages packed with cars, bikes, boats and caravans for sale every week. Auto Trader, at your newsagents every Friday.
Closer. Just do your job, but never forget what he is.
Do not touch the glass. Do not approach the glass. If he attempts to pass you anything, do not accept it.
Man's a raving maniac. Who knows what he'll do?
Yeah. All good things to those who wait. Tick-tock, tick-tock.
Found a girl's body down in West Virginia.
Are you saying that he's killed again?
The secret of Cantonese beef. The mystery of Chinese cooking, unraveled by Charles.
You've been our quality controller on ground coffee for a long time now, David.
You're giving Hargreaves my job.
Yes. Yes, I am.
Cutting corners, are we?
Certainly not.
But you are putting me out to pasture.
No, David. I need your experience on Kenko Instant. I'm putting you on the board.
Oh.
Kenko, everything we know about coffee in an instant.
The Coral Sea of Oz, just the spot to test quick and smooth mixing solvent. It's great for hanging all papers, and its sticking power. Pretty good, I'd say. Just goes to show, even down under, Solvite's the only one you need.
St. Ivel Gold is a low-fat spread for people who like a fresh dairy taste. So if you're aiming for low fat with a delicious taste, St. Ivel Gold will bowl you over.
I'm Peter Hayes. And I'm Alastair Stewart, and together from the time the polls close on Thursday, we'll bring you the results as they happen. We'll be reporting live from the key seats where the election will be won and lost.
We'll be concentrating, though, on the local changes in special regional slots throughout the national programme on Friday.
That's the ITV Results Special, Election 92, 10 p.m. on Thursday.
Meantime, join us tonight on TSW at 10:35 for the regional news and Trish Williamson's weather. But first, we go over to the studios of ITN for the news at just after 10 o'clock.
Major, we will win as polls show parties neck and neck. Kinnock, we've won the arguments, we'll get the votes. Ashdown, we've changed the nature of British politics. Tennessee's Arthur Ashe tells how heart surgery gave him AIDS. And PLO leader Yasser Arafat is reported alive after an air crash. Good evening. The last opinion polls of the election campaign point to a close finish tomorrow. All four indicate the Conservatives gaining ground slightly. Two have Labour still ahead, one has the Conservatives just in front. One has Labour and Tories dead level. Tonight, Mr Kinnock said it was Labour which was winning the arguments and would win the election itself. Mr Major said he believed the Conservatives would win with a sufficiently clear majority to govern for the next 5 years. The Liberal Democrat leader, Mr Ashdown, said the more seats his party won, the more power they would have to change politics for good.
Voters were questioned yesterday and today, in one case just today, for the 4 opinion polls published tonight. Leaving out the don't knows, ICM for The Guardian found Labour support 38%, down 3 on last week. Conservatives also 38, up 1. Liberal Democrats 20, up 2. Mori for The Times suggests Labour 39, also down 3. Conservatives 38, up 3. Liberal Democrats 20, up 1. Gallup for the Daily Telegraph suggests Labour 38, up half a point. Conservatives 38.5, also up half a point. Liberal Democrats 20, down half a point. NOP for BBC Two's Newsnight and The Independent indicates Labour 42, up 3. Conservatives 39, up 2. Liberal Democrats 17, down 2. Our poll of polls, averaging the most recent 8 polls, suggests Labour 39, Conservatives 37, Liberal Democrats 20, and that's a Labour lead of 2 points. Our correspondents report now on how the party leaders spent their last day out on the campaign trail.
The campaign trail took Neil Kinnock home to South Wales tonight. There was a welcome from old friends and a mood encouraged by Mr Major's earlier comments about being in opposition.
They were the words of a man who knows the country's gone against him and their record, and a country that's given the thumbs down to their idea of the future, because it's a future composed entirely of the past.
But as they played the Labour leader's tune and he made one last triumphal procession to the podium, opinion polls again raised questions about overconfidence. All day, Mr Kinnock had warned about complacency. Tonight he appealed to floating voters with his vision for the future.
In the year 2000, I want to be able to look anybody in Britain in the eye and be able to say to them, 8 years ago, you, the British people, gave us a chance, and we did not let you down.
Champagne was served on the Labour campaign plane today, but only for the press. Mr Kinnock stuck to coffee. Glenys Kinnock served boiled sweets and wore a winning smile. The Kinnock campaign ended as it began, at a pace designed to preserve energy and avoid blunders. Today's only visit to a brickworks in Accrington. A pilot provided a lone voice of dissent and a rude message. Mr Kinnock's electioneering style has attracted considerable criticism. Too many photo opportunities, not enough contact with real voters is the complaint. But party strategists believe they've handled matters more skillfully than their opponents, and that Mr Kinnock has successfully sold himself as the next Prime Minister. Tim Hewitt, News at 10, with the Labour campaign.
Mr Major's battleground tonight, the calm of the television studio, not the heat of the election rally. Here at ITN for an interview on Channel 4 News. He's insisted on a vow of silence on the subject of opinion polls throughout the campaign, and even tonight would venture no precise prediction about the outcome.
I didn't make a prediction last time, and I'm not going to make a prediction this time, except this: we will win, and by a clear majority.
He's spent the day trying to turn the undecideds into decideds, the battle bus weaving through the London marginals, and on board no regrets about his much criticised campaign.
No, I don't think you can look back and say I do things differently. We set out at the beginning to set out what our policies were for the future and to expose the differences that exist between the parties' policies. I believe that's what we've achieved.
What's it like now waiting for the result?
Well, I'm fairly phlegmatic. I'm confident about what the result will be. I'm used to waiting. I've contested elections before. I've waited for my own results. It'll be the same this time, only perhaps bigger.
A bit like waiting for an exam result or a driving test result, perhaps.
Well, the work is done. The work is done. It's finished. The voters will have decided what they're going to do.
And in South London, where he first learnt the art of street corner speaking, the last of the impromptu calls to arms that have been such a feature of his campaign. The soapbox itself is now in honourable retirement. Over the past few days, there has been Conservative talk of the humbling of the pundits tomorrow. But as Mr Major awaits polling day here at Downing Street, there is also talk among senior Conservatives about being the largest party in Parliament, but not with an overall majority. And there's a recognition that in such a very tight race, special factors in individual seats could make all the difference. Edward Sturton, News at 10 with the Conservative campaign.
In light-hearted mood tonight, Paddy Ashdown arrived on stage in Taunton for his last rally of the campaign. As well as his speech, the Liberal Democrat leader had come armed with a puppet, an orangutan given to him by his campaign team as a memento of one of his favourite warm-up jokes. But his message struck a more serious note, that the Liberal Democrats had transformed the style of this election.
They told us that unless we took part in the ridiculous charade of the so-called War of Jennifer's Ear, we wouldn't get any attention and our vote would go down. But we proved them wrong. Our vote went up. We responded to the thirst in this country, the thirst in Britain, for a positive vision for our country. The thirst to have politicians say what we believe in.
The pace of his campaign is something which has marked him out. Late today, he was still trying to woo the voters on his 48th walkabout, meeting someone he'd encountered on his first.
Absolutely superb.
And there was another unexpected encounter during one of ITN's live broadcasts.
Nice to see you. It's a lovely day, and how well are you keeping?
Paddy, you can tell us what it's been like yourself.
I'm now about to doorstop you.
Have you been exposed to
She's never lost her words,
Have you been exposed
Always.
to cross-examining?
Always, Libby, and chiefly by you.
And proper questioning?
Oh, absolutely.
Would you like to tell our viewers then
No, I'll leave
what
you
you
to
think
do
you've
that.
achieved?
We knew we wouldn't faze you. It's a joke from them in there, you realise that,
Great.
don't you?
Well, it's been great fun, Paddy, and good luck.
Great fun.
Tonight, with a parting message to a crowd of supporters, the Liberal Democrat leader's campaign finally closed.
All right, good luck.
Tomorrow, Paddy Ashdown and his party will find out whether their positive message, which they say has lit a beacon of hope across the country, will translate into votes. Libby Wiener, News at 10, with the Liberal Democrat campaign.
This morning, Mr Kinnock claimed that Mr Major had conceded defeat. That was after Mr Major remarked that in what he called the unlikely event of a minority Labour government, the Tories would vote against a Queen's speech containing Labour's stated policies. Our political correspondent Peter Allen watched all the main parties, as he has throughout the campaign.
As the first postal votes dropped into the ballot boxes tonight, the message was clear. The campaign might not have been exciting, but the finish is going to be a thriller. Halfway through this campaign, the pollsters recorded a slump in Conservative support big enough to put Labour in power. That support hardened. Now most of the pollsters say the two parties are neck and neck. It's all down to the floating voter.
I really don't know at the moment.
So to capture that floating voter, a message of special urgency at this morning's press conferences.
For recovery, vote Conservative.
Vote for recovery. Vote for investment in education. Vote for the NHS. Vote Labour.
We appeal particularly to those who will be voting for the first time. Use your first vote well and vote Liberal Democrat.
There was one last minor gaffe to entertain the media when Mr Major talked about how he'd treat a Queen's speech from a Labour government.
I would study what was in the programme and what I thought was in the interests of the country. But I think it is so far off the beam of what is going to happen that I really wouldn't wish to say any more about it.
By tradition, party leaders don't admit even the hypothetical possibility of the other side winning. But Mr Major was soon back on safer territory and promising victory.
But I reiterate again, it is an hypothetical set of circumstances that are not going to occur. We are going to have a clear majority when the votes are counted on Thursday night.
A prediction which aides are tonight reinforcing after the evidence of the latest polls. But if he was to get the lead, where would the votes come from? It was one of those questions which Mr Major seemed to find impossible to answer. The answer in the end came from Mr Patton.
I don't know. What we've found increasingly in the last week is that those who began the campaign saying they weren't sure how they were going to vote have been firming up steadily in our direction.
Over at the Liberal Democrat conference, the mood was at times hilarious.
Apart from your own exciting contributions, it's been a rather tedious campaign, hasn't it?
I realise that. Des leaned across me in a helpful way and said he is referring to the other parties, so it's all right. I actually think that Britain was in danger of slipping into the American style of campaigning, purely negative, purely on the basis that these two out of condition heavyweight boxers step into the ring and slug it out, and the last one to remain standing survives. We may have helped to turn Britain away from a style of politics which is interminably boring and devastatingly negative.
All very worthy, but what about those seals with which Paddy posed?
Those seals, I was entitled to be involved in this election as anyone else.
Mr. Kinnock rejected the accusation that this had been a tedious campaign.
All journalists say that at the end of every campaign, but there they don't wear as well as politicians do.
And he claims now, as he has claimed throughout this campaign, that in the key marginals, Labour is indeed winning the election.
That not only have we retained strength, we've added strength, and we've done it in the battleground seats, where this election will really be decided.
In Whitehall, civil servants have ready what they call their black books of briefing papers for an incoming government. There's one set for a Conservative government, one set for a Labour government. Some ministries have even prepared papers for a Liberal Democrat minister. But tonight, neither politicians nor civil servants know who will be picking up those black books on Friday afternoon. Peter Allen, News at 10, Westminster.
Labour made a last push in Scotland today. 4 shadow ministers held a news conference in Stirling saying the party was prepared for government. For the Conservatives, the Transport Secretary, Mr Rifkin, called tomorrow the battle for Britain to save the Union. The Scottish Nationalists said they would win the vote in Scotland. The Liberal Democrats agreed there was a mood for change, but no desire to walk away from the Union.
The message today from Scotland's leading Labour figures: we'll be flying south on Friday, ready to form a government and then deliver Home Rule for Scotland. John Smith prepared Labour's devolution plans in the 1970s. He says this time a Scottish Parliament really can get off the ground.
I'm looking forward to it as unfinished business. It will be a very proud day for my colleagues and myself when we walk into the new Scottish Parliament in Edinburgh.
The Liberal Democrats will hope to walk alongside. They also want a Scottish Parliament linked to Westminster. Today they said this election can make the difference.
Scotland is really now, at this moment, at a crossroads, and we have a real opportunity to take the road to Home Rule with a new beginning and a new deal.
The Liberal Democrats support in most respects Labour's plan for a Scottish Parliament. It could raise its own income tax up to 3 pence above or below the rest of the UK. It would be responsible for health and education, industry, the environment and agriculture. Westminster would keep control of defence, social security rates and general economic policy. The SNP wants it very different, full independence, and despite a disappointing showing in recent polls, leaders were hopeful today of achieving it.
By giving the SNP a mandate to negotiate Scottish independence, the people of Scotland will transform our country from a powerless province to a free and prosperous nation.
Throughout this campaign, the Tories have stood up for the Union and no change, though today there was a hint of possible flexibility after the election.
The Conservative Party has always been sympathetic to the principle of the decentralisation of government. Indeed, it was the Conservative government that invented the Scottish office and brought the Scottish office to Edinburgh. What we're not prepared to be party to is constitutional change that would weaken the United Kingdom and weaken Scotland's interests in that United Kingdom.
But if Labour does win tomorrow, or if there's a coalition government, constitutional change seems inevitable. The election could pave the way for the